This is the WrestleBread Podcast, bringing you the latest news, recaps, and analysis of AEW and WWE. Get the unique perspective from a wrestling fan of over 25 years. Here's your host, Jaydee.
What's going on, guys? This is Jaydee here, and this is episode 121 of the WrestleBread Podcast. So, no live episode here, and that is because I actually was out of town. Me and my family, we went to Wildwood for a couple of days and got a little bit of a sunburn, but nevertheless, we did have a lot of fun. We normally go to Wildwood every year, and this year was a bit of a last-minute trip, just to get out the house for a few days before summer is over. But, nevertheless, so I wasn't able to check out NXT or Dynamite because of that. However, there has been a lot of rumors and news that have gone along the way. Also, Smackdown, the first episode of AEW's Rampage, and also Triplemania, which happened this weekend as well. So let's get into some news and rumors. The biggest one has to do with NXT. So apparently there is going to be a change as far as the foundation with NXT, that there's not going to be any small wrestlers or any wrestlers over 30. Now, this is just a rumor. Take it as it is for right now, but this seems like, very something big. And the reason this is happening is because Triple H is being blamed internally for NXT not winning the quote-unquote Wednesday Night Wars, which WWE thought they would win easily. And then on top of that, there are rumors of backstage politics that people are worried that they will lose power if Vince McMahon's son-in-law was to take over the company. And so now Vince McMahon is getting his hands on it. In case people were wondering, well, does Vince McMahon watch the product? And obviously the answer has always been no. But now he is taking over the product, and they are trying to cater to a different type of crowd, but to give NXT a different feel, which is a bit interesting, seeing as though the rumor has been that they are trying to keep Adam Cole, allegedly offering him a $1 million contract. That's also, a rumor that's not exactly confirmed. And forget season 8 of Game of Thrones. This seems like some type of Game of Thrones episode going on here with the internal politics of everything. It does make sense, though, because Vince McMahon does have a lot of yes men who are around him. And whenever you have been working for Vince McMahon for a certain amount of years and you have a certain kind of influence in the decision making, if there is a threat of someone else taking that position, then yeah, that would lead to you no longer being the yes man or having, some type of influence in the decision making. So that part I can kind of believe. I've seen this happen a lot of times in business. We've seen it happen with corporations and multiple storylines, multiple storylines with news and TV shows and stuff. So that makes sense. As far as Triple H being blamed, first of all, you can't really compare NXT to AEW. NXT is technically the developmental brand. These are wrestlers who you really haven't heard about. People who are new to the indie scene. There are some times that they will pick people from the indie scene who you have heard of before. However, you can't really compare that to AEW, which have established wrestlers, especially with the likes of Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega and the Elite and everything like that. So you really can't compare the two and say, well, they should have easily beat them, especially when WWE doesn't even promote NXT like that. How many times have we seen, on Raw or SmackDown, there is sometimes a commercial that will happen of them promoting NXT, but they don't like really promote NXT. Perfect example is with quote unquote Dewdrop. When she first arrived on the scene, instead of saying, hey, this is such and such from NXT UK, be sure to check her out. I mean, they did it with Karrion Kross. They showed a little bit of what Karrion Kross can do, but it wasn't like an active cross promotion. Everybody remembers one of the best Survivor Series of recent involved when it was Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. It was very exciting. You got to see dream matchups and stuff like that. And the SmackDown where NXT took over only happened because the roster was stuck in Saudi Arabia. But still, it was very exciting, and it gave NXT a bit of a platform. And to be honest, I have to like really check, but I would think that it would help the ratings back then. Can you imagine 2 million people watch Raw, every week? About 1.5 to 2 million people, I'll say, watch Raw every week. And you tell me that NXT isn't even trying to get close to half of those viewers to tune in to NXT the next day. I mean, or on Wednesday, I should say, And, it just kind of makes me think of what Vince McMahon has said when he said that AEW is not a competition. And it's true. AEW is not the competition. The competition to Vince McMahon has always been within his own company. Whatever SmackDown is doing well, something was taken away. We all remember when Paul Heyman had took over Raw and he was working on younger talent. We noticed Andrade was being featured more. There was big plans for Ricochet and Aleister Black, and then that was taken away. NXT, was doing very well. Normally, their takeovers would take over the whole weekend, and it was as if it was the competition within the company, which doesn't make any sense. Business-wise, you want to promote as much as you can of your own product. And for some reason with WWE, they tend to not want to promote something that is organically going over with fans. So another thing on top of that, as of recent, I feel as though NXT kind of lost a bit of its shine. We are now entering the era where they have lost a lot of major players, especially that drew them on along for a while, like Sasha Banks, Ricochet, Bayley, Aleister Black, Asuka, Nakamura. There's no more Undisputed Era. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa are involved in different things. And so, the big thing that had drove a lot of fans going for a long time, a lot of the big players are no longer there. And so now NXT is now in a bit of a rebuild stage. We have Raquel Gonzalez, who is awesome, but her star power doesn't match Asuka, Sasha, Bayley, along those lines. We have Karrion Kross, but unfortunately, Karrion Kross has been so dominant that whenever he goes against somebody, it's kind of hard to believe that person would win. And then what made it worse, when he goes to the main roster, he lost within 4 minutes by Jeff Hardy, who ended up cheating in order to win, which makes no sense. And so it's just very confusing. And then I also heard that Dakota Kai, who is the number 1 contender for the NXT Women's title, went on to main event last week and lost to Aaliyah. And so and I said it plenty of times, I don't know what happened that, Karrion Kross goes up to the main roster and loses in that type of fashion when he was so dominant in NXT. And that's because they don't really care. The fact that they decided they're putting up this whole no more small people, no more smaller guys, no one over the age of 30, which is very interesting because, like I said, that means we'll be losing Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, a lot of the players. If you just restructure NXT just a bit, that you can make it work. Turn it into a third brand then. If you wanted it to, if you felt as though it should be AEW, you should turn it into a third brand. Whenever there's a draft, have people go to NXT, have people go from NXT to the main roster. But unfortunately, NXT caters to a different crowd than what Raw and Smackdown is catered to. I've said it plenty of times before, but Raw and Smackdown, WWE caters to a more casual crowd. That's why they don't really talk about NXT as much as they should. So, it's just, I really feel for Triple H because NXT was his baby. He, brought it from the ground up. It was very successful for a very, very long time. But unfortunately, now that they're in this lull where they have to really build up people with star power, but you can't compare NXT to AEW really as far as ratings. If you were told, okay, we got Raquel Gonzalez versus Amber Moon, on the other hand, you have Chris Jericho versus such and such, people are going to gravitate towards Chris Jericho because a lot of people know Chris Jericho more than Raquel Gonzalez and even Amber Moon, especially the way that it gets marketed. It's not exactly marketed, it's not exactly marketed correctly, in my opinion, by WWE. And then there's another rumor going out there is that Triple H and Shawn Michaels only heard of the recent NXT releases after John Laurinaitis called the wrestlers, which is another crazy thing as well. That it definitely felt like there is some type of backstage politics going on. I hope none of these rumors are true. That this is just rumors. You know what I mean? And that nothing is really going to happen to NXT. But the fact that we got some releases, especially with Bronson Reed, which doesn't really line up with this whole restructuring of NXT. You would want someone like Bronson Reed there. But, unfortunately, it is what it is. We don't have any control of what's going on with WWE. If we try to control it, we get muted, like what happened in Chicago. So, fingers crossed that NXT will be able to survive and that it will still have some of the spark, or at least the bare bones of what made it so good in the first place. Other piece of news is that since we're along the lines of NXT, it's been announced that Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano are having a baby. So congratulations to them on the exciting news, which they shared on Twitter. They showed an ultrasound, and they revealed that the due date is in February. So I'm really hoping that they don't pull a dick move. I'm talking about WWE, and let Johnny Gargano go in the middle of this. We're still in a bit of a pandemic, even though there are places to go, but we're still in a pandemic. There's that, no 90-day clause. Ain't gonna let the man go after it's been announced that his wife is pregnant. I really hope they don't do that, but it does sound like something that they would do. But congratulations to the Garganos. They are such awesome people, and I know that they're going to be great parents. And over to AEW, the show Rose to the Top has been announced with a premiere date of Wednesday, September 29th after Dynamite. And this follows the life of Brandy and Cody Rhodes as they are managing the AEW and their personal life. And it also includes the birth of their daughter as well. I may check this out. I do sometimes check out the little TV shows from wrestling. I do like The Miz. I did check out Total Divas a little bit, a few episodes of Total Bellas, but I am interested to see what this show is about as well. So getting into some recaps, like I said, I didn't really check out Raw or NXT or Dynamite this week because I was out of town. But I did check out Smackdown once I got home. And wow, can we talk about the promo between Roman Reigns and John Cena? And, I thought that it was in the bag that Roman Reigns was going to win the title. Was going to retain the title from John Cena. And then comes SmackDown, where John Cena completely destroys Roman Reigns on a promo. Telling him that he's going to be the biggest failure. John Cena basically breaking the fourth wall, obviously. Sitting there saying that Roman Reigns will be the biggest failure in WWE history. He quoted CM Punk, which was pretty crazy. Roman Reigns did, he mocked John Cena's resume and said, missionary may have been good for you for 20 years, but it wasn't good for Nikki Bella, which was shots fired. Proud of Roman Reigns on that one. And then Cena went for the destruction, mentioning how he almost destroyed Seth Rollins. He ran off Dean Ambrose. He's been in the main event for 10 years and he couldn't get it done. They asked me to come back because you couldn't do it. I don't have to change. You the one that always have to change. And, bars of soap for teeth and stuff. And I'm like, dang, Cena, can you just save some for everyone? You know what I mean? But this definitely hyped up the matchup that is coming this Saturday for SummerSlam. It gives you that doubt that, this might happen, that Cena may take the title off the Universal Champion. And so he brought up CM Punk, saying that he could win the title, break the record of winning the title 17 times, leave off Hollywood with the title, and he said, and I may even blow you. He said, I'm going to hop over the barricade, and I may even blow you a kiss, which was a reference to what CM Punk did to him. And so this whole thing kind of came full circle because CM Punk pretty much came at John Cena about how he's been on top of the mountain for so long, this, that, and the third. And here comes Cena telling someone about how they've been on top of the mountain as well. Very good promo, very good segment. Gets you kind of scared for the tribal chief. We also had Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin needs some money. I still don't know how to feel about this gimmick. It's something different, but I'm interested to know, where is this going? Where are we going with this? We also had the contract signing between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair for their SummerSlam match. I'm very happy that this time around the intensity of the rivalry is a lot more better versus the, I don't really like you, you really don't like me, let's team up in a match type of situation. It's like, no, give me the intense rivalry between two people who just want to kick each other's ass. That's it. I love the ending shot with Sasha Banks giving the bank statement on the table, and then she stood on top of the table to close out the show. I love that. I love it. I know it's not going to be the main event of SummerSlam, but I really hope that their second match is as good as the first one. And Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair is a rivalry that can definitely, and I'm going to be very bold and say this, it can rival something like Stone Cold versus The Rock if it's booked correctly. Because them two definitely have the chemistry to put on a great match in the ring. I really hope that they can just keep it going. And I really hope that WWE can definitely book it correctly to maintain the intensity of the rivalry between these two. So going on to AEW Rampage, this was the first episode of the new show, which followed Smackdown. I think it was a pretty good idea because it kind of gives, 3 hours of Smackdown. Of course, there's the rumor of Vince McMahon wanting to add a third hour to Smackdown, which has been talked about for a number of years. We'll see what happens because it's being talked about again, especially with Rampage adding on that extra hour. We're all waiting for this week's Rampage where, it's taking place in Chicago and it's pretty much in the bag that CM Punk is going to show up. And if CM Punk doesn't show up, it's going to be the biggest tease in wrestling history. But it's pretty much in the bag that he is showing up. It's too many damn hints and drops. And I'll get into that after this recap, but it's a lot. Kudos to AEW, though. This was a pretty good introduction for Rampage. We started off with Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage for the Impact Championship. This was a pretty good match between these two. The finish was surprising because Christian won the title. We had a bit of an interference with the Young Bucks and Don Callis, but Christian hit his finisher on top of steel chairs to take the win. The crowd popped for it very well. Crowd was very hot for this show most of the night, which is very good because they had, I think it was 2 hours of dark matches beforehand. So the fact that they were able to keep it going between the hours, between 10 to 11 o'clock at night, kudos to them. But I'm very shocked that Christian won the title, but I'm fine with it. Kenny Omega has held all these titles for so long and kind of been, bringing viewers from one promotion to the other. And I think it's time for him to start releasing some of these titles. I'm completely fine with Christian Cage holding the Impact Championship. He'll be going over to Impact and, bring somewhat of different feuds over there and maybe hand off the titles to someone in Impact as well. But I think this was a pretty good start to Rampage. We also had Miro versus Fuego del Sol. This had the stipulation that if Fuego was to win, that he would get a full-time contract with AEW. And this match was pretty quick. Miro, of course, won, so it kind of continued on this whole Fuego. Fuego is able to sell beautifully. I remembered when he was out there during the fight between Malachi Black and Cody Rhodes, and Malachi did the black mask on Fuego, and Fuego sold it like a champ. After the match, Fuego was in the ring for a little bit. You see Tony Khan and Sammy Guevara come out, and Sammy Guevara presented Fuego with AEW contract. He was very emotional. He didn't know that this was going to happen at all, but he said as soon as he saw Tony Khan and Sammy Guevara, he knew what it was. And seeing the emotion of someone who worked so hard to try to, get a contract so they can have a living, and you can see that it was so genuine. It was something that he really wanted, and it was a nice feel-good moment for the show. Then we had Britt Baker versus Red Velvet for the AEW Women's Championship. The crowd was so hot for Britt Baker. It was a big pop for her, and this match was really good, and I'm very happy that this was the main event. Kind of give a bit of a different feel of how AEW is going to allegedly going to feature more women on Rampage than they are on Dynamite. Red Velvet did a very good job in this match. She has gotten a lot better than when she was in the mixed tag team match with Cody Rhodes versus Jade and Shaq. They played up with Baker's injured wrist, which became a target for Velvet. The finish was pretty interesting as well because Britt Baker had the injured wrist. She went and did her lockjaw on the other side to get the win. The crowd really popped for it. This was really good. This was a really good match, and it was a very good setup. They perfectly set up the fact that this is happening in her hometown. They kept saying Britsburg and everything like that. They had the yellow towels and stuff. Then afterwards, Britt Baker started to attack Red Velvet. Then Chris Statlander came in and started, helped out Red Velvet. And then comes out a woman with orange hair. And at this time, I was featuring in the Clark Street Wrestling podcast. Be sure to check them out. And I saw a woman with the red hair, and I was like, that's not Becky Lynch. I had to do a double take. But it was actually Jamie Hayter, who returned to AEW. This was the backup that Britt Baker had teased. A lot of people thought it was going to be Ruby Riott, who is now being known as Ruby Soho. But it was actually Jamie Hayter, which went through a complete change. She looks like $1 million right now. So I'm excited to see where that's going to go with Britt Baker and her new backup. So I also checked out Triplemania. I love checking out Triplemania. I feel it's like one of those shows that you just watch just to have fun. And so we started off with this Marvel Battle Royale, which was a lot of fun. I loved it. It was very funny. We had Thanos, we had a Venom, we had Black Widow, which I didn't know was a villain, versus Captain Marvel. Oh no, it wasn't Battle Royale. It was a tag team match. They were going against Captain Marvel, Captain America, who came in on a motorcycle, and Spider-Man, who came down on a zip line. Definitely gave you Shawn Michael vibes, but however, he came down on the zip line upside down. Kudos to the wrestler who did this, because that zip line was struggling, and he kept stopping, and it kept stopping, and then he shimmied a little bit to keep it moving, but it was not a smooth ride down. That was fun to see. We also had a battle royale afterwards. This was won by Mr. Iguana. That was fun to watch as well. Of course, only watch AAA once a year whenever they do Triplemania. So a lot of these wrestlers I don't know, but there are some wrestlers who I've seen before. We also had Deonna Purrazzo, who fought. She put her title on the line, and this was title versus title for the AAA Reina del Reinas title, and she won the match. She was pretty emotional after the win as well. The women did pretty good in this match as well. We also had the AAA tag team titles, Fenix and Pentagon versus Hijo del Vikingo. I've seen this person before. He is amazing. I call him Jon Snow because he got the King in the North outfit that he rocks. He was teamed up with Laredo Kid, and they went also against Taurus and a secret tag team partner, which ended up being Brian Cage. This was a really good match. Of course, this was a really good match. All 6 men did an awesome job. Taurus and Brian Cage being the powerhouses in this match. If you haven't checked out Triplemania, definitely check out Triplemania. And then we came for the AAA Mega Championship, Kenny Omega versus Andrade. Andrade comes out looking like $1 million, and then he is standing there after he takes off his lucha mask, his shirt and tie and everything, and out comes motherfucking Ric Flair. And I was like, no way. So apparently, I guess it wouldn't be considered a no compete clause because he actually didn't. I mean, he didn't like wrestled in a match, but he appeared there, and so Andrade got his father-in-law to back in his corner. And I was just thinking right before Ric Flair came out, I was like, oh, Andrade's out there by himself because he has always had someone in his corner since he started in NXT. So it was really cool that Ric Flair was down there. This match was really good. It's just crazy how, it's just crazy when someone leaves WWE and they are like booked 20 times better. It's just like the missed opportunity. I knew that WWE had a missed opportunity with Andrade. Once he went to the main roster and he just wasn't booked correctly, he definitely could have been, the next Rey Mysterio in WWE. That may be a bold statement for some, but he has skills. No, he cannot speak perfect English, but he can he was definitely somebody who can draw in the next wave of Hispanic wrestling fans or wrestling fans, period, who had love for wrestlers like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio and things like that. But seeing him being very successful in AEW and seeing him here at Triplemania, it warms my heart because I love it when talented wrestlers are booked properly. It warms my heart. So with this match, Kenny Omega versus Andrade, this was a very good match. Kenny Omega won here, which I was pretty surprised about. Allegedly, the rumor is that they decided not to have the title change hands. AEW allegedly didn't want the title to change hands, and they decided to do it later. So maybe this may come up. This may be a match at All Out for all we know. Maybe AEW is deciding to do it at one of their pay-per-view events. I don't think Kenny Omega has been challenged for All Out just yet. So if they do decide to turn this into a match at All Out, especially with Hangman Page not being there at All Out, I would love that. I would love it a lot more. To get the big ass pop from the Chicago crowd when Andrade wins the AAA Championship. And like I had said on Rampage, I completely agree with Kenny Omega. I was fine with Kenny Omega holding the titles. I understood, business wise, if your promotion isn't highly promoted like that, with someone name, as popular as Kenny Omega having the title, kind of like bringing it to AEW, then bringing it to your show, kind of bring viewers. Now, did it work as far as people watching more Impact or AAA? I don't know. Probably not. But now he is now like a transition champion, I guess I should say, with the Impact title going to Christian Cage, and eventually the AAA championship going to Andrade. Now, as I said before, it's a guarantee that CM Punk is going to AEW. The teases and the information that has been out there is just like, it's a matter of when, not if. CM Punk was interviewed for a podcast, and the interviewer asked him, if he, of course, that when AEW first was created, that Tony Khan wanted CM Punk to go with him. And the interviewer asked him, what was said and why did you decide not to go with AEW the first time? And he mentioned it was a wait and see. And there's something, if you don't know the story, you wouldn't have picked up, but it was something that I picked up. Now, when it came about that AEW wanted CM Punk. Allegedly, CM Punk mentioned how he never saw Tony Khan face to face, that an offer was given to him through text message, this, that, and the third. This time around, CM Punk mentioned, he said, I said this to Tony Khan's face as well, that it was wait and see, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, wait a minute, you actually met Tony Khan face to face? Like, the story changed, I should say. And then he was asked, what is he doing on August 20th? And he had to sit there and he paused. Now, this is CM Punk, who is he's very quick on the fly. He had to pause and say, what, August 20th, let me look at my calendar and see what I'm doing. And he mentioned how he allegedly has a screening and he hopes people will be there. And, you know, he was very, he was very slow with his answers. He kind of had to think about it, this, that, and the third. And then Tony Khan had mentioned something else as well. And then came people from all over the sports world. It was said, I think it was during an NFL game. It was mentioned. It was during a Chicago Bears game. The commentator mentioned how this is, you know, just like how CM Punk is going to show up in Chicago. This isn't going to be the only biggest. No, they said this is the biggest debut until August 20th when CM Punk shows up in Chicago for AEW. I was like, okay. And then there was something else too. CM Punk was doing commentary. I forgot what it was. I don't know if it was an MMA match or a wrestling match or something along those lines. And the commentator had mentioned him debuting in AEW, and he didn't correct them. And then even he mentioned something. CM Punk also said a line, and I completely forgot what he said as well, but it's pretty much a lock. Like, this is can we all just admit, whether you like AEW only or WWE only, or whether you like CM Punk or not, can we just say that this is a great time to be a wrestling fan? I don't think anybody had on their wrestling bingo card at the start of 2021 or the start of 2020, hell, the start of the year 2000, that we would reach this point where CM Punk is coming back after 7 years of leaving wrestling. We had Kenny Omega, Andrade, and Ric Flair in the same ring at the same time. We have a wrestling company that is less than 3 years old that's sold out an arena, a big arena in Chicago. We have possibly in 3 days, we have CM Punk debuting. We have Roman Reigns versus John Cena. We have Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. We have Samoa Joe versus Karrion Kross within a weekend. It's just exciting, okay? This is an exciting time for wrestling fans. And then we have wherever Bray Wyatt is going to go. Becky Lynch, keep teasing her return. Who knows when she's coming back? It's just an exciting time to be a wrestling fan. It really is. Let's just sit back and enjoy the ride. Despite of course, what's going on with NXT is, of course, the sad part about it. But, to just sit back and enjoy the show. The good parts of the show, not 3 hours of Raw. But yeah, this is an amazing time to be a wrestling fan. So that's it for the WrestleBread podcast. This is a short and sweet episode because I didn't really watch a lot of wrestling this past week, so there's not a lot for me to recap on. But I will be coming out later on this week with a live episode of my predictions for SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver. And unfortunately, the episode will come out before AEW Rampage, but be on the lookout. Maybe I'll record something for YouTube, a live reaction video or something like that, especially if they're going to pull off what is supposed to happen on August 20th. I really hope Tony Khan didn't do this whole Chicago show just for CM Punk not to show up. You're going to be in Chicago 3 times in a week. Why are you coming to Chicago 2 hours early? And then you're going to name the show The First Dance. Like, don't do this. Please. Do not let this be false advertising. There will be a riot. There's going to be class action lawsuits going on if this man does not show up in AEW this week. Or I will even say if there isn't a major debut this week. Because it could be Dan Bryan. It could be whoever. Like, there needs to be a major debut that happens this Friday. Or else there's going to be riots. So, like I said, that's it for the WrestleBread podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Shout out to Julie and Rob Bass from the Wrestling Court podcast and AlternativeMinds.com. Keita and Jay from the Keita and Jay Show. Chris from We Talk Next podcast, which is featured on the Keita and Jay Show. Nando and Larry from Half K podcast. Devin and Hafiz from Clark Street Wrestling. Also, shout out to the Hard Camera podcast, Straight Talk podcast as well, Top Rope Wrestling podcast as well. Coming up this week, I was featured in an episode of Clark Street Wrestling podcast as well, so be sure to check them out on YouTube. And like I said, coming this week is my predictions for SummerSlam and for TakeOver 36. This is going to be a wild week of wrestling. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JDC137. That's JAYDEEC137. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter at WrestleBread. Be sure to click the link in the bio. It will give you the links to the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcast as well. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, guys, peace.